Hello everyone, and welcome to my first video for Contemporary Studies. Once again, this is for my Contemporary Studies class, so if you are not in Contemporary Studies, you do not have to watch this video, but if you want to, you're always welcome. Once again, my idea for these videos was that I would go through the PowerPoint in the video, and you would follow along with the PowerPoint that is in Schoology, and then fill in the blanks that I've left with the information from this video. And that was kind of my idea with these videos, to help you get the new content and information down. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, like I said, like I've told you before, this class is going to start with Westward Expansion and Manifest Destiny. And that's what we're going to get started on, and the first section is called Reshaping America in the Early 1800s, Moving West. The learning objectives for this section are: summarize the settlement and development of the Spanish borderlands, explain the concepts of manifest destiny and how it influenced westward expansion, and analyze the causes and challenges of westward migration. There's a list of the key terms from this section. All of those are things that we will be going over very shortly. Okay, the borderlands of northern Mexico. In 1830, what is now the American Southwest was considered northern Mexico. Like the former British colonies in the east, this region had a long colonial history, one that dated back to the Spanish conquest of the Americas. Now, the American Southwest, and it was considered northern Mexico at this time, is what we would call today Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California, that whole region there. That was called northern Mexico at this time. The sections that we're going to discuss are challenges in New Mexico, warfare threatens the colony, settlement is limited in Texas, and missions thrive in California. Okay, challenges in New Mexico. It was founded in 1598, and New Mexico was the oldest colony. By 1765, only 9,600 colonists lived there, half of them in two major towns of El Paso and Santa Fe. The constant threat of war with nomadic, Comanche, and Apaches discouraged settlement. Now, it uses the term nomadic there. If you think back to history class that you've had before, I guarantee you have heard the term nomadic or nomad before. And in case it has slipped your mind, because I know nomadic or nomad is not a term that you probably use on a daily basis, it means a group of people that move place to place. They don't make permanent settlements. These tribes, the Comanche and the Apache, they were tribes that didn't set up permanent towns or settlements. They followed the buffalo herds. That was their food source, their main food source, I should say. And because the buffalo were always moving, they had to always be moving too. So these tribes, they didn't build like cabins or permanent housing. They used teepees and tents. They didn't have stable housing. It was all temporary, so that they could pack it up and move easily. Colonists relied on the Pueblo natives for protection. However, many of the Pueblo died due to disease. Now, the diseases that the Pueblo died from were due to their exposure to people coming from Europe. Because before this time, before the Europeans started coming to the Americas, the natives had no contact with them up until this time. So whenever the Europeans start coming over, instead of just bringing like themselves and their clothing and weapons and that kind of stuff, they're also bringing their germs. They're bringing their diseases. And at this time, this would be no different than if today a flying saucer appeared above in aliens came down to the surface of Earth. There was no contact between the Europeans and the natives. In today, we have planes and everything. You could go anywhere in the world that you want to. But back in this time, it could have just been a whole nother planet. It would have been exactly the same. So that's why they had no protection from these diseases. There was no exposure. There was no resistance. So these diseases that maybe the Europeans might get a sniffly nose and that'd be it, would completely decimate the Pueblo and the natives. So that's why the diseases brought from the Europeans were so rough, because they had no resistance to it. The Apache of the Great Plains dominated this area. They lived by hunting buffalo, and it was made easier by horses from the Spanish. The horse is not native to the Americas. Before the Spanish came, there were no horses in the Americas. Well, horses as we know them today, I should say. So, as you could probably imagine, taking down a buffalo, I have a picture of them there, it's going to be a lot easier whenever you're able to do it from horseback than just doing it on foot. Alright, and also it says, also acquired guns from the French, but used them for war only. The natives did not use guns for hunting. It was only if they were going to war with someone. So, while the natives, yes, they did have guns, they acquired them from the French, they used them for war only. And if you think about it, they might have these guns, but they have a limited amount of ammunition. The natives didn't know how to make more, so they had to save it and only used it whenever it was absolutely necessary. So, war. Warfare threatens the colony. The Comanches of the Rocky Mountains and Lakotas of the Mississippi waged war on the Apache. The Apache fled into New Mexico, where they raided the Pueblo and the Spanish. Some settled in New Mexico and became known as the Navajo. Most remained nomadic Apache. So, the Comanches and the Lakotas are going to join forces against the Apache. The Apache had really been the dominant tribe of the area, so these two smaller tribes, the Comanche and the Lakota, joined together to take down the Apache. And the Apache have to flee into New Mexico, where they attacked the Pueblo and the Spanish. And while some of these Apaches settled down into New Mexico and became known as Navajo, most remained their nomadic lifestyle, their nomadic Apache lifestyle. But the ones that became known as the Navajo, they settled down. They did not continue to be nomads. They built permanent housing. And like I said earlier, if you have permanent housing, you're not nomadic. Raids on the Spanish became more frequent and violent. The Apache were getting pushed out of their normal territory, so whenever they're shoved into somebody else's lands, they have to raid for supplies. And the Comanche also started attacking New Mexico. So the colonists in New Mexico, the Spanish colonists, it's going to be a rough time for them, because both the Apache and the Comanche are both coming at them now. In 1777, a governor reported that American Indian raids had reduced his colony to the most deplorable state and greatest poverty. So, let me ask you a question. If you were given the opportunity to live in a colony and you heard that it had been reduced to the most deplorable state and greatest poverty, is that somewhere you would want to live? Probably not. If something's in a deplorable state, that means it's pretty substandard, something that's not very good. So the most deplorable state and greatest poverty. So 1777 is a rough time to be in these Spanish colonies. Instead of fighting the raiding Apache, the Spanish paid the Comanche and Navajo to fight the Apache. This strategy was largely successful and made the New Mexico colony grow and develop. So, the Spanish realized, we can't really beat these Apache. They are whooping all over us. It is a bad time. So what can we do? Oh, why don't we pay these other people to fight for us? We'll pay them, and then they'll take all the bloodshed, all the death, all of that, and we'll just essentially hire them to be our bodyguards. And that's what they did. Strategy was successful and made the New Mexico colony grow and develop. Because whenever you don't have to worry about defending yourself because you have these paid bodyguards that are going to protect you, you can just focus on growing and developing your colony. Settlement is limited in Texas. While New Mexico flourished, Texas did not have the same fortune. Texas attracted few settlers as it was home to nomadic raiders and had few towns. In 1760, only 1,200 colonists lived in Texas, mostly around San Antonio. Now, Texas, as we know it today, is one of the most populated states. But back at this time, these raiders, these nomadic raiders, this was like their prime territory. There were lots of buffalo there, so it's ideal for the nomads to be there. And if you got these nomadic tribes that are going to roll through and wipe out your whole colony, is that somewhere you would really want to set up a farm? I don't think so. And since the settlement was so sparse and scattered out, the raiders knew, hey, if I go and I attack that farm, well, there's nobody else around to help them. Well, let's go in there, wipe them out, let's take all their stuff, and yeah, it was easy pickings for these raiders. Missions thrive in California. Spain's main focus was in developing their settlements in Mexico. They colonized modern-day California as a buffer zone. Buffer zone is what they called it. This buffer zone existed as an area of land that Spain would control in order to further protect their main interest in Mexico. Now let me ask you a question. What benefits could having a buffer zone bring? Go ahead and pause the video, think about it for a minute. Got an idea? Well, if you have a buffer zone, that's an area that you control, think about it this way. If you have people there and there's like an invading army coming in, well, they can see them, and then they can hurry back and tell everybody further inland, hey, there's a big army coming, we need to get ready. This would make it easy for scouts to be able to come back and tell the more populated cities, hey, there's a big enemy force coming in, we need to get ready for them. Another benefit of having a buffer zone. Now, these buffer zones weren't like densely populated or developed or anything like that. If you have that land, you can trade it to somebody else. Even if you don't develop the land or have many towns or anything, you can still sell that land for a good amount of money. So by claiming this buffer zone and controlling it, you can sell it later for a lot more money. Alright, some more possible benefits of a buffer zone. Advanced warning of a foreign invader. Land could be sold at a later time for more money. Farming and resource gathering without paying another country. That's going to be a major thing here. Whenever they're in the Americas, any sort of resources that they need, they have to find there, or they're going to have to pay a hefty sum to buy it from another country, because everything has to be brought in on ships. And that's a very long process to bring any sort of resources in. And not to mention, if you have to bring it across land, you have all these nomadic raiders coming in and wiping things out. So any sort of resource gathering that you can do that you don't have to buy is going to be a major benefit to controlling that land. And also, land could be traded. In the 1760s, Spain colonized the California coast. This was to defend against the Russians probing south from Alaska. Like I said before, that buffer zone helps protect against an invading army. Settlers were not eager to move to California due to distance from markets in Mexico. Once again, the Spanish, their major power, their major development was in what is modern-day Mexico. And so if you look on the map that I have here, if you are here in California, see my cursor? If you're here in California, look how far away Mexico is. And this is where all the major markets are. So if you're a farmer and you're growing crops or livestock or something, you might have that food, but if you want to sell it for money, you have to bring it all the way down here. That's a very long distance. And oh, what's this between where you are and where the markets are? What's in this area right here? That's all those raiders, all those tribes that are coming through and attacking and stealing your stuff and killing people. It is not a great place to farm in California whenever you have to sell in Mexico, especially whenever those raiding tribes are in the area in between. Rough times. Due to a lack of colonists, Spanish leaders sought to convert American Indians to Christianity. Led by Father Junipero Serra, a series of Catholic missions were launched. The missions were more successful in California than other places due to fewer raids. American Indians constructed buildings, irrigation ditches, and farms for the Spanish. Now these missions, one of their primary goals was to convert the natives to Christianity, mostly Catholicism. These were also meant to establish these settlements, to build irrigation ditches and farms for the Spanish. Now, irrigation ditches, if you don't know what that is, an irrigation ditch is something that people will dig to divert water from a river or a pond or a stream into an area that may not have any naturally flowing water. There's a lot of very dry areas out in that part of the world, so these irrigation ditches are going to be necessary if they want to get water into a place that doesn't have a naturally occurring water source. The borderlands of northern Mexico. Let's take a look at this map here for just a moment. What geographic obstacles did Americans moving westward face in the 1820s? So go ahead and pause this video and take a look at this map and see if you can figure out what geographic obstacles Americans faced when moving westward in the 1820s. Got an answer? If you said Rocky Mountains, you are correct. If you look here, right here, that is the Rocky Mountains. And if you're trying to bring a wagon full of supplies and people and everything to try to establish a farm or something, and you have to go through the Rocky Mountains, it is going to be rough going. And later on in this lesson, we will actually talk about one of the most infamous occurrences of this time in the Rocky Mountains. A group of a family that was going west that faced a pretty gruesome end. Alright, here's a picture of Apache warriors in the late 1800s and what we thought that this is what they looked like and what they rode. America looks to the west. In 1821, a revolution toppled Spanish rule and established Mexico as an independent republic. The U.S. government officially recognized its fellow republic to the south, but American expansionists, people who favored territorial growth, soon began to covet New Mexico, Texas, and California. Thinly settled but rich in resources, the three provinces seemed ripe for American plucking. See, thinly settled, meaning there wasn't a whole lot of people there, and there was a whole lot of resources. You know, if there's not a lot of people there, not going to be a lot of people to protect it. Okay, we are going to end it here for this video. If you have any questions about anything we've gone over so far, feel free to leave a comment on this video or send me a message through Schoology. You guys always have my email. And that's going to be it for this one. Alright guys, thanks a lot.